Welcome to another episode of the Unmasked History of Scooby-Doo, the podcast where we take a deep dive into the mystery of Scooby-Doo media, getting clues through interviews with people who helped bring our favorite mystery-solving dog to life, and maybe eating some Scooby snacks along the way. I'm your host, Alexa Lawler.
Scooby-Doo, where are you?
And it would have been mine if it hadn't been to those meddling kids.
Gang, we've just been handed our next mystery.
Blasted meddling kids. Scooby-Doo!
Today we're going into the vault for this interview. This one was originally recorded a few years ago, and I'm so unbelievably excited that it's finally hitting your ears. Around the time of the game's release, I had the chance to speak with Corwin Bug Emery from Spooky Pinball. We talked about all things pinball and of course went into depth about their Scooby-Doo pinball machine. In the time since that interview, I also got to play one of them, and I can confirm it's awesome. One of these machines, still at the top of my grail list. I'll get one someday. But without further ado, let's get right to the interview. I typically start off with 3 questions of Scooby-Doo related trivia. Are you up for it?
I think I should be. I can do my very best. I hope it doesn't expose me as a fraud.
So the first question is, which of the following is not a villain in Scooby-Doo Where Are You? A, Charlie the Robot, B, the Wax Phantom, or C, the Scarecrow Ghost?
Ooh, Scarecrow isn't in seasons 1 and 2, I don't believe.
That is correct.
I thought so. Yep.
That is from the new Scooby-Doo movies.
Yep. Okay. I didn't recognize him from seasons 1 and 2, which is primarily what we've been working with. So
The second trivia question is, which Scooby-Doo movie from the 2000s features an arcade as the setting for the final encounter with the villain?
oh man, I don't know that one.
Scooby-Doo and the Cyber Chase.
Cyber Chick. Okay, yeah, I haven't seen that one. For the 2000s, I remember watching a lot of the 2000 ones when they were actually like coming out in that like 2008 through probably 15 period or so. I remember seeing a lot of them through there, but I wouldn't be surprised if I missed a few because I really did just rewatch the originals for the most part.
That's fair. The last trivia question is, can you name 2 villains that are featured on the Spooky Pinball Scooby-Doo machine?
Can I name 2 villains featured on the on our pinball machine?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Ghost Clown, Snow Ghost, the Creeper, Space Kook, Charlie the Robot. I mean, the Mummy, Jekyll. I could keep going. There's a lot.
Perfect. I thought I'd throw you an easy one.
Yeah, I really hope I can get that one.
I mean, yeah, I would hope so. So, to start off with just general questions, what is your relationship to Scooby-Doo? Were you a fan growing up?
Growing up, we always had what was it called? It was on the Boomerang, and they would play a lot of the original series episodes. But actually, my parents owned the first 2 seasons, Scooby-Doo, Where Are You, on DVD, and they would throw that on for me a lot because I kind of had a weird childhood where I didn't watch most of what my friends were watching. So like I wasn't watching most of the popular cartoons that were coming out that day. I watched a lot of 60s television, a lot of like the Munsters and Addams Family and Scooby-Doo and Looney Tunes and things like that. So I grew up loving the original series, and then the live action movies came out not far from when I was born. So those obviously were a huge influence as well. And especially for my sister, who also works at Spooky, who's a little bit older than me and like remembers going to the theater to see those as a little kid. So that's our relationship with Scooby-Doo, is growing up with it there. And then, I mean, when your career and hobbies all lie in horror and haunted things and spooky things, Scooby-Doo just it finds its way back to you pretty often.
Absolutely. Do you have a favorite personal memory that includes Scooby Doo, whether it was growing up watching it or working on the pinball machine?
So, man, favorite personal memory outside of working on the actual game itself, because like the memories I've made related to Scooby-Doo since working on the game is obviously multiplied by 1,000. But there was a ride in St. Louis, what's it called? Six Flags. And it was a Scooby-Doo. If I remember right, it was like a shooter ride where you sit in the cart and you shoot things. And I remember my gun didn't even work on the ride, and I just didn't care because it was so fun getting pushed through it and looking at all the different scenery and characters and whatnot. And I believe outside of the ride they even had a mystery machine and some cast actors who were dressed up as the gang. So that was a really impactful like moment and thing for me, because I've always had a fascination with amusement park rides. Like the Haunted Mansion and Pirates of the Caribbean are like, I could sit on those two things for 24 hours straight and never get tired of it. So to find a Scooby-Doo one, which like was tougher to go find and see, that was really special to me for sure.
From what I've read, Spooky Pinball has a bit of an interesting history. Can you walk me through the history of the company and how did you get into pinball manufacturing?
So my father, over 10 years ago, before podcasts were as popular as they've become, and there was a lot of them, in a really niche pinball hobby, he started the Spooky Pinball podcast. It was like the third, radio content related to pinball that was probably even invented or like and that anybody was doing at that time. And he worked at a print company and got involved with working with this company called Jersey Jack Pinball when they had a revival in I believe like 2009, 10, something like that, around that era. And so between doing the podcast and like getting very involved in the hobby, making a lot of connections and friends, and then actually working with Jersey Jack Pinball, he decided to take the gamble to start his own pinball company in 2013. In February, just a couple months from now, we'll be having our 10th anniversary as a company. And he took a gamble. We threw everything we had in the bank towards it to just try and start something. And we started with a theme that's actually shockingly similar to Scooby-Doo. It was about ghost hunting, because at the time, the reality TV shows about ghost hunting, like Ghost Adventures, were all just stupid popular on Travel Channel and things like that. So we did a ghost hunting game all about a group of people who are hunting ghosts, and the ghosts are funny, and it's a very comedic game and whatnot. And it took a while. We did 150 units. It took like over a year to sell them all, and then to actually build them all. And it was pretty tight. I mean, as far as like money goes and things like that, it was a really huge struggle the first couple of years of business and whatnot. But we took every single penny that we made from that and rolled it into doing an actual licensed game, because in pinball, having licenses and properties is really huge. It's a huge selling point for any game. So we rolled all that straight into a Rob Zombie game that we did, and we doubled the numbers. We went from 150 to 300, and then so we rolled all that into Rob Zombie, which then we actually uh, got contracted to do a Domino's pinball game and a Jetsons pinball game. We didn't necessarily design those ourselves. They're more like contract builds where people brought them and we said we could build it for them. And then from there, did a game that was in another original theme, because it'd been a while since we'd done an original theme. It was called Total Nuclear Annihilation. It's like an EDM nuclear kind of dystopian world game. And from that, we rolled into Alice Cooper's Nightmare Castle, which we did about 500 units of. Absolute dream to work on that one. Alice Cooper's was my favorite band forever. Growing up, I was an absolutely massive Alice Cooper fan. And from there, we went over and did Rick and Morty, which was our most popular hit at the time for sure. We sold out 750 units in like 4 hours, and a very popular game, went over incredibly well. From there, we rolled into Halloween slash Ultraman, where we did two themes on one layout. So and that was our record-setting game. We did 1,700 units between the two of those, and that's where things really started to blow up for us. And then coming off of that is right where we are now with Scooby-Doo. We rolled off of that and straight into this. It's just a long history of everything we make, we roll back into the company to keep growing and expanding. And we're in a really unique spot where we get to work on things we want to work on. Every single theme we've ever done is something we wanted to do. We're huge Rob Zombie fans, we're huge Alice Cooper fans, Rick and Morty, Halloween, Ultraman, and Scooby-Doo. So that's kind of like a really brief summary of the 10-year history of Spooky Pinball and how we've grown.
That's great. Congratulations on the 10 years.
I appreciate it. We're hoping to celebrate.
Definitely. Is there a moment where you remember falling in love with pinball, or is there a specific thing that interests you about it?
It's always been around for me. My dad, we got our first pinball machine. There was like an arcade company near us that would like get old broken games and then they would put them on route at like casinos and bars and bowling alleys near us. And my dad just he grew up loving pinball, and he offered to start like fixing up some of their games for them and making them look nicer so he could put them on location. And every once in a while, instead of getting paid like cash or anything, they would say you could just take home this game over here. Like it probably sat in a flooded basement for 10 years and you have to rewire all of it and rebuild it, but you can have it for free. So we got our first pinball machine in like 2000, I don't know, 5, 6, something like that, like really early on. And just ever since then, just kept getting more and more into the hobby. So for me personally, I mean, I was born in the very early 2000s. Like it's always been around for me. There's not a day I don't remember being around pinball and enjoying it.
And for the Scooby Doo game specifically, how did that process begin? Were you wanting to do a Scooby Doo machine, or were you approached to make one?
So people had been asking for Scooby-Doo from us just because it fits our company's, I guess, aesthetic so well. Because we bounce back and forth between like adult themes and then family friendly, fun, spooky adventure type things. And people had been asking for a Scooby-Doo game for a long time, and it still to this day baffles me that nobody made it sooner than this. Like it took this long. Like we've had so many other odd, weird games and IPs made before a Scooby-Doo one. And of course we all had the nostalgia for it and loved it growing up and whatnot, and fans asking for it constantly, and you just start thinking of like how licenses can relate to pinball and all the fun, cool things you can do with modes and mechanisms and sculpts and whatnot. It all made perfect sense to do. So we pursued it immediately, kind of right before slash during when we started announcing Halloween, because development on pinball just takes so long. And so we started pursuing that through Warner Brothers, who we had already kind of established a relationship with, because one, we did the Jetsons very early on, and then two, they bought Adult Swim while we were in the middle of working on Rick and Morty. So we already kind of had the transition of going to working with them. And it's like, well, we were already working with them. We can look and see what else we could do with them. And Scooby-Doo was on the list, and it was like, it's just an absolute no-brainer. Like, it was not a question at all. There's no license we would have taken other than Scooby-Doo at that time, since it was available.
Numbers wise, how long of a process is it from idea to product launch?
From just straight idea to the actual product launch. Oh man. So typically like 18 to 24 months is a safe bet of how long that process is. I mean, from literally jotting down on a napkin, this would be a cool game, and drawing some doodles of like flippers and ramps and stuff like that, to it's on the production line for sale. Yeah, I would say 18 to 24 months is pretty accurate. And that time is getting longer and longer between games. Like the amount of development needed before it hits the line is expanding for us quite a bit.
To further elaborate on that, what all goes into that development process?
Oh man, it's everything. It's an arcade game, it's a video game, it's a movie, it's animations, lights, sound effects, just everything. I mean, you've got to lay down your shots of like, okay, we want an orbit here and a ramp there and a big mech here. And then it's okay, well, what story is the game telling? Like, what are the modes of the game going to be about? Okay, well, if we're going to use these characters, who's going to play them? Okay, who's going to write the script for them to play that? Who's going to edit it? And who's going to make all the sculptures, who are you going to hire for artists, and it is an insane process that I still don't know how it gets done every single year, but we do it. And every time we get done with it and it hits the line, it's still like, wow, how did any of that come together and actually work out? But it always does, just through lots of hard work. But I mean, yeah, it's really a wild process. It's like making a whole movie and game all at the same time. It's really something.
That's so cool. And as a small company, were you able to do a lot of that internally, or do you hire a lot of freelance? What's the ratio on that?
It's actually, I believe in the pinball industry, we probably do the most in-house work of any of the companies. We're very fortunate that we built our shop in our small town of just 1,000 people, and we have people who drive, 20 minutes from neighboring towns to work with us and whatnot. But we've we've all grown around the hobby and the industry for so long now that we all just pretty much do everything in house that we possibly can. There's things you have to order from overseas that it's just like we can't make 2,000 of those ourselves, like obviously. But as far as like the design goes, everything's done in house at this point.
For Scooby-Doo, were you given some guidelines from Warner Brothers, or did your team have a lot of creative freedom?
We had more creative freedom than we ever would have anticipated. It also made it easier to work with because we decided to just do the original series because there's more available there. We could explore and do all of it if we really wanted to, but we wanted to really contain it down to that original series and do our best to explore that whole world. So, but I mean, for creative freedom, they really let us do a lot, almost anything we want. There's, of course, guidelines of, hey, like Scooby's dog tag has to look this way. Daphne can't do this, Fred can't do this, they can't say this. Like there's of course all those rules, and like you can't just completely change who the characters are. You still have to write an accurate story for those characters and represent them well, but they've let us do exactly that. They've let us write our own things and have our own ideas and modes and stuff like that. So the guidance has really just been like, here's your guidelines of like what things have to look like, and that's about it.
And before we get too far into this here, for listeners who maybe aren't super familiar with pinball, can you briefly explain the main parts and mechanics of a machine and any terms as well?
Sure. So, oh man, this could go for a while. um in pinball, it's a physical machine. So you have a big cabinet that has a board in it that's called a playfield. And the playfield is where the steel ball is actually rolling around. The steel ball is the pinball. Um, you hit the steel ball with flippers. They're these little paddles that when you press a button, they smack the ball and it throws it certain ways. And then in the game, you have shots. So there's ramps where you shoot it and it goes up and it goes, around and swirls around and comes back down to your flipper. There's orbits, which are down on the playfield, and your ball just follows along a guide that throws it around and loops it back to the flippers. There's things like targets that you're just hitting a solid object and it bounces back. Scoops, where you're shooting into a hole where the ball gets shot back out and it might come straight back at you, or it might flow to another part of the game and get shot back out at you. Um, there's even now upper playfields. So instead of just like one playfield that you're rolling the ball around on, you can have a ramp that goes up to a second one where you have more flippers and more ramps and more targets. Um, yeah, those are some of like the more basic aspects to pinball for anyone who might not know. But there's tons of videos out there and whatnot of pinball and gameplay where these things are all explained all the way down to like flipper technique of the best way to handle and control the ball and all sorts of things. It's a really crazy hobby.
That's awesome. What makes the Scooby Doo game unique from other ones that you might see?
From other games like in the hobby, or just other games that we have made?
Why don't we go into both?
Okay. So other games than we have made, it's the widest game we've ever made. We've never made a game so wide. It has like the most sculptures, the most powder coated parts, the most call outs, like speech from the actors, animations. It has the most of anything we've ever done pretty much across the board, the most modes, the most everything. What sets it apart from other company games would be we have a lot more humor in our games. We really like making funny games that like you can laugh and play with your friends. I mean, there are other companies who have some funny games out there and whatnot, but there's a connection that we always try to do where the game is really connected to the player. Like in Rick and Morty, Rick is talking specifically to the player, not just saying like, lock the ball, jackpot, blah, blah, blah. He's like really getting into it and talking to you about how you're doing. Like, oh, you kind of messed up that, didn't you? Well, better try again, huh? And it's like you get very personally connected to our games, and that's very much the case with Scooby-Doo because we have the whole entire gang talking to you specifically about how you're doing. So that's something that I'd say we do really well is we connect to the player through the theme.
Let's talk about the three different versions of the Scooby-Doo game. What are the differences between each one?
Oh man, so there's probably way too much for me to even go into detail on that one, but something that we focus on is a lot of companies between their versions, they take out physical features of the game like ball locks and ramps or mechs or something like that. We always keep all that in so everybody can have the same gameplay experience. We just change the cosmetics. So our highest end version, the collector's edition, compared to the standard, the collectors will have a whole bunch of different powder coated colors and extra sculpts that sit there and light up and look really nice, and like a whole topper on the game with all the villains looming over top and they're lit up and creepy. And compared to the standard, which wouldn't have features like that, it'll still have all the same shots. They just aren't as bedazzled as the collector's edition. And there's a list on our Facebook of like all the actual differences between the models, but it's literally like hundreds of items. So it's getting harder for me to remember off the top of my head.
That totally makes sense. As far as gameplay goes, do you need to be a pinball pro to play it, or can anyone of any age enjoy it and play it to some success?
So I mean, with the license being Scooby-Doo, we wanted to make sure it's accessible to everybody because like you don't want only just the top tournament guys to be good at it. You also want an 8-year-old to be able to walk up and like have fun playing the game and see the things they want to see. The best way we describe it is with layouts in pinball in general through like the code, the modes, the shots. It's like a textbook that has to be both appealing to kindergartners and college graduates. They all have to be able to read the same thing and get enjoyment from it to the same degree, which is really, really hard to do. But for this specific game, it's very accessible to everybody. It's a pretty easy game to shoot overall. We've had some games in the past that are just really challenging games, but they're also very adult themed and kind of aimed at that crowd. So, but this one is accessible to pretty much everybody. The tournament guys are gonna like it, and kids should also like this one.
You mentioned the custom speech earlier. Can you tell me a bit more about how that comes into play during gameplay?
Yeah, absolutely. So we got custom speech from all members of the gang using various actors who have played those characters throughout the franchise's history. And to kind of explain how it works in the gameplay is they're giving you directions on what is happening, what you should be doing, and how well you're doing. So when you start the game, they will tell you like, hey, you need to shoot white shots to collect clues to start a case. So you know, okay, I need to shoot all the blinking white shots. And then when you're in like a multi-ball and the shots are lit and flashing and you hit them and you're collecting jackpots, they'll be yelling like, hey, jackpot, super jackpot, like you're doing really well. They're encouraging you and saying that you're doing well. If you mess up and drain on the out lane, they might tease you a little bit about it, like, oh, well, you probably didn't mean to do that, like sort of things like that. And it's they really act as your guide throughout the game. They let you know everything that's happening and how you're doing. And it also allows us to fit in a lot of pinball jokes, so like character specific jokes about pinball that you would never think you would hear otherwise.
What was all involved in getting the voice actors from the series? Were you able to watch them record the lines, or were you writing the scripts? How did all of that play out?
So we just through working with various talent throughout the years, we know a few agents who just happen to know some of the actors. When I first started working on the project, Warner Brothers sent me a list of their approved actors. They're like, "Hey, these are the people you can go and work with that we already have approved, like you can use them, and we just need to like read the script. So I went through and picked out my favorites from that list, and somehow got lucky enough that everybody who was our first choice is in the game. And so we reached out through the agencies or the agents that we already knew to contact them about getting them on the project, and all of them were super excited and interested in the project because it was something a bit different to work on. And we started all writing the script. And then separating their lines out, and it was the biggest script we've ever done. It was over 100 pages, and I'm also pretty confident it's the most callouts recorded for a pinball machine in history. It's over 4,000 callouts. Like, it's just this crazy number. They literally did more work on this machine than they probably have to do in a season of the show. Like, it was just a bonkers amount. And so then I would sit down, and they pretty much all had at-home studios, recording studios. Since COVID hit, they all got themselves very nice setups at home, and I would sit on a Zoom meeting just like this, and they would start reading it, and they would do their lines, and then they would ask questions about like, hey, do you need what kind of take on this one, and did I say that right, and things like that. And it was a really, really cool experience overall, because I just got to sit there and pretty much watch like professionals at work at what they do. They're like the best. And it was a really cool experience. I enjoyed it thoroughly.
And have you had that experience on some of your other games as well, or was that the first time that you have had so many voice actors?
It's definitely the first time we've had this many voice actors. Every single game we have a lot of script and a lot of call outs and whatnot. Sometimes we meet the person in person to record with them in a studio. Sometimes they just record it and send it over, and that's what you get. And sometimes, in this case, you just get to sit on a Zoom meeting and go back and forth and work on it for hours with each other. Um, but yeah, that's typically how each game goes for that.
So, hypothetically, with so many callouts, how long would you need to play to hear all of them?
Oh man, I have no idea. They're not even all implemented yet. It's gonna take forever to get all of them in. There's already a ton in because we wanted to have a lot of variation. So instead of just one call out where they say shoot the mystery machine to start a case, we liked to break it apart so that, because a big thing with Scooby-Doo is it's not funny just because one person's saying something. It's how they play off each other that makes it funny. It's the way they interact with each other, and we wanted to duplicate that for the game. So I like we wrote it so that each character could say each part and we could play it off of each other. So I can have Shaggy saying to shoot the mystery machine, and then Fred finishing to start a case, and vice versa. And so just getting all of that implemented. And it also, in the game, you can choose your character, and whatever character you choose, the game will favor callouts from that character for what you're doing. So if I'm playing as Daphne, I'll get not mostly, but it'll favor Daphne callouts over everyone's callouts for various things. Like when you lock a ball, she'll say ball one locked instead of Scooby saying it. But yeah, to get all of them and hear all of them, I have no idea. It'd be a lot.
Back to the development process a bit. Do you end up with a prototype of the machine to test for gameplay, or how does that work?
So there'll be multiple prototypes. You'll do revision after revision. You start with just a blank cabinet in a blank playfield where there's nothing screwed in, and then you start laying down your shots and figuring out what the game's going to really be doing and where the ball is going to go. And you start drawing out like kind of what you would like to see the artwork do, and then you go and you CNC that out, and then you start screwing it in. You see how it works, and if it sucks, you start all over, and if it doesn't, you keep building upon it and making changes until everything's in. And then Rev 7, somebody decides they don't like something, and we're going to change it to this, and we have to go back and change a whole bunch of things, and it goes through multiple revisions, and we'll make just a lot of prototypes, like quite a few prototypes. And then eventually you get one where you're like, okay, I think that's the end. Like, this is what it's going to look like in production. So you build your first production model, and then you start really getting down how it's going to be built, thousands of times. And so yeah, it's a very long process. It's really hard, but it's always rewarding.
Do you keep all the prototypes in-house at the end? Do they get destroyed? What happens to them?
We have a sacrificial fire with all of them in a pile outside, and it blesses us to have a good launch day. No, we keep them in storage. They get wrapped up and they sit there, and maybe we'll auction it off to charity or something someday. But for the most part, we don't want to look at it.
I don't know. That fire sounds pretty poetic.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so, just for the average Scooby-Doo collector, it's a bit of a high price point. Can you explain everything that goes into a pinball machine to have it sitting on that pricier side?
Yeah, it's really development costs a ton of money. Parts cost a ton of money. Um, it just the cost of everything goes up, but especially like when you open up a pinball machine, there's more parts and things in it than a car. There's so many things that go into it with wiring and lights, nuts and bolts, hardware, cutting custom metal, getting custom cut cabinetry for it, printing on all the glass because it's big sheets of glass, and sound systems and computers and power supplies and metal legs and then yeah, you still have to pay for custom artwork, and then you have to pay to make that art, the decals for it, or the direct printing that we do, and just everything. It's when you add it up, these machines cost a ton to build, and all those things together, and then you have to pay everyone to build it because you have to build 1,000 of them, and all those things together, it makes the cost pretty significant. And pinball is more expensive now than it's ever been. It's a really big thing that's being talked about a lot lately. And what's crazy is like this Scooby-Doo, our high-end model of it is one of the cheapest models out there, like in the industry, because there's other collector's edition version of games that are 5-6 grand more than what Scooby-Doo is. And when we started, we didn't want to make super crazy expensive games. We wanted to make games that people could reasonably afford to buy and enjoy together. We didn't want to price gouge anybody. And we still try to stay as true to that as possible while still being able to have dinner. So it's really changed a lot over the years. And we always focus really hard on making sure we're at a fair price point where we know people won't be outraged by the price.
And with all of the parts and everything, how much does the average pinball machine weigh?
Wait, this one weighs about 300 pounds, I want to say. Typically, I think they're between like 250 to 320 or so. I would say is probably accurate, maybe a little less than 250. This is our heaviest game that we've ever made. It's super heavy.
So it's not going to easily go upstairs or anything?
Not easily. It'll go upstairs, but not easily.
So once someone puts down an initial deposit on wanting one of the machines, what goes into the process from there? Because they're not pre-made or anything, right?
Right, yeah. So a lot of it comes down to timing. It's first come, first serve. But then also what edition of the game you get depends on how soon you'll get it as well. Collector's editions are built first. It's part of the allure to them is some people don't want to be 1500th in line. So they're like, well, I better get a CE, a collector's edition, so I can be in the top, 200 instead. And we always promise a certain build time to beat. It's typically 18 months. To this day, we've never missed one. We've always beaten our build time that we've given out. On this one, I think I just said this. On this one, it's also 18 months, and I'm very confident we're going to beat that, especially with how much of our parts we can now do in-house helps a ton with that. So if you order one, it just really depends. If you order it day one, there's a chance you could have it in just a couple months. If you order it, a month later, you might not get it for 12 months, but it's like I said, it's first come, first serve.
And you're building, what is it, 1,969 of them? It's dependent on order, right? There's no set of number for each edition?
Yeah. Yeah, we don't what most companies do is they will limit the number of CEs. They might only do 500 of them and that's it. We like to let customers decide what they want. Like if you can't afford the CE but you can have standard, get the standard. If you have the money for the CE and you really like how it looks and you want it, we don't want to stop you from getting it. We want you to have it. So and then yeah, it's just a total units of 1969. So they could all be CEs, they could all be standards, it could all be a healthy mixture of each. But yeah, that's kind of how we break that down.
What has the reception been like so far? Is there one that's more popular?
The collector's edition is the most popular version. That's been the trend on our last three titles. On Rick and Morty, it was like 90% collectors. On Halloween, it was like 90% collectors. Scooby-Doo is looking really similar as far as the breakdown. It's just hands down the most popular version because it just looks the prettiest.
It looks gorgeous.
Thank you.
How are the numbers doing? If someone wants one, can they still get one?
Yeah, there's spots that are still open through our website. You can still contact many of our distributors. Um, Numbers are looking really good. It's been a very successful launch. We're all super happy with it. A lot of people are waiting and holding out to see gameplay footage and code and whatnot, which is so it's very understandable. Like absolutely, you should wait to see that before you buy a game. So we'll be trying our best to roll that out as soon as possible. And then yeah, we expect it'll definitely sell out eventually here.
Awesome. That sounds great. And so, for someone who might not be able to afford one of their own, will it be available for businesses to purchase? Will you see it in like a bar or something?
Yeah, we sell to all sorts of locations and businesses and whatnot. We don't. There's no like weird rules or stipulations with that. Whoever orders it can order it.
And kind of a more general Scooby Doo question here. Why do you think that Scooby Doo has lasted for over 50 years now?
Ooh, this is a good question. Let me think of a good answer. um, why do I think Scooby-Doo has held up so well over the years? The formula of the show is so consumable. It doesn't get old. It's it's not just the fact that it's like a kids show. It can be appealing to people of all ages. And there was something about characters designed in the 60s that they all feel so timeless. Like I mentioned the Munsters and the Addams Family earlier. We're still getting more Munsters in Addams Family just because the formulas made back in the day for these characters was just so good and so appealing. And it's something that it doesn't seem to be happening as much anymore. It's harder to make a new successful cartoon than it is to do another run of Scooby-Doo because people are so familiar with it and like it so much. But I mean, it's down to also just good character writing and dynamics. Like you have someone in the gang for each person who's watching the show. It's not hyper focused on just one target audience and one specific type of person the way some shows might be. Like there's some shows that might be targeted for just specifically people who are obsessed with beauty and fashion and some who are obsessed with Viking wars or something like that. This show it scales across a lot broader things than that. Like more each character can speak to somebody in a different way, which I think also helps. Because I mean, like each year, my favorite character changes. Some years I'm like, well, Shaggy's obviously the best, and the next year I'm like, no, it's Fred. And then like lately, it's been like, I don't know, Daphne's pretty cool. Like it's just every year it changes who your favorite character is, and as you grow as a person, you can kind of change your opinions on them and whatnot, and your appreciation for them. So and then there's a lot of reasons of course like why it's been so popular over the years. It's just everything is so iconic about it, especially with how their world is designed, how like these characters are so colorful and bubbly while their surroundings are always so dark and mysterious. It makes them stand out so much more that it's really imprinted on your brain. The how like just the imagery of them in general. But hopefully that answers the question well enough.
Definitely. No, that's great. I think that's all of the questions that I had for you. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about that I might have missed, or just generally that you wanted to mention?
What's uh what's your opinion on Scrappy Doo? Should he be in the game or not?
Oh, hmm.
This is a hot. this is a hot button topic on the forums right now, is like, the Scrappy-Doo better not be in this thing.
I think it would be fun. I think it would be a fun way to bring Scrappy back, but yeah, there is a lot of debate over him.
Mhm. I think he should be available for those who want him and don't, because it's pretty, it is so it's more divided than politics. It's crazy. Like people are diehard for or against him. It's really fun.
Just before we end, do you have anything you'd like to promote, social media channels or anything?
Yeah, I mean, our Facebook and Instagram is both just Spooky Pinball. I believe Instagram's actually Spooky Pinball Official or something like that. Um, and then our YouTube channel is also Spooky Pinball. I do a lot of code and gameplay videos on there explaining like the rules and how to play our games. So I've been doing a lot of like Halloween and Ultraman ones. Uh, Once I'm fully able to and have permission, I will be doing it for Scooby-Doo as well. And so you'll be seeing lots there. Um, Otherwise, no, I mean, really, we only sell one thing. Besides some merch on our website with our ghost logo. But
Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today.
no, thank you so much for having me on. This is cool. I've never done a Scooby-Doo podcast before, so it's really sweet.
And that concludes today's episode. Another huge thank you to Corwin Bug Emery for taking the time to chat with me. For more Scooby content, be sure to check at Unmasked SD Podcast on Instagram or on TikTok at Unmasked SD. You can also always find the podcast at unmaskedsdpodcast.com. If you like this episode and want to hear more, also make sure to check those social media channels or the website. Or you can listen to older episodes wherever you like to get your podcast fix. Thanks for listening, and keep an ear out for the next episode. Scooby-Dooby-Doo!